Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com. Life's a beach with Mulligan's Pharmacies. Open late on the Dunmore Road and in Tramore.
Good morning to you. As I said, going into the programme just before the news there, it's a nightmare for the parents of Nora Quoirin, but I think an equal nightmare for the parents of the 18-year-old from Dungarvan in County Waterford who was killed over the weekend on his way to collect his parents and just never got there, was killed in a crash. So our thoughts going out to them. Very hard few days ahead of you and a very hard time that you have to go through, and I'm sure anyone who knows who we're talking about will understand and know that everyone has their thoughts and prayers with them. I think there could be nothing absolutely worse than have something happen to your child. Also coming up on the programme this morning, we've new guidelines for students who want to get out of compulsory Irish. It's going to make things easier for those with learning difficulties, but it's a time to do away with compulsory Irish altogether. Let's have your thoughts on that as well. If you have health insurance, what's the most important thing about it for you? Is it the cover you get or the price you pay? Interesting findings. We're also going to be talking about this morning, and it's an amazing festival that transforms the city. I'm going to be talking about the Waterford Walls International Festival of Street Art, to give it its right name. But first up this morning, we're going to be talking about childminding, because new regulations or attempts to regulate the childminding sector will be unveiled later this month, amid concerns that only 120 carers out of tens of thousands are registered to look after children in the minder's own home. And this is the difference here, because we've had that frightening TV programme that I think sent a lot of parents into a tailspin of worry about what's going on in the creche where I leave my child. Frances Byrne is Head of Policy and Advocacy at Early Childhood Ireland and is on the line now. Good morning, Frances. Good morning, Frances.
Good morning, Maria. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah, that was my mistake. Apologies. Now, just explain what these reforms are and what your thoughts are of them.
Well, we don't know what the full reforms will be, because I think what the scoop that Juno McEnroe has in the Irish Examiner today is talking about a public consultation. So the Department of Children and Youth Affairs, Catherine Donnelly's department, did a report which was issued last year, and as part then of the follow-up earlier strategy which the government is rolling out from last year until 2028, there was talk of a plan for reforming all of the system, including creches, but that there would be a focus on childminders as well. And part of this is concerns, obviously, as you've raised in the introduction, about child protection and safety. But it's also because the National Childcare Scheme, which is being introduced by the department later this year, will allow parents whose children are taken care of by childminders to receive financial support towards that. So I suppose it's bringing childminders into the net so that parents can avail of subsidies, just as parents in creches can avail of subsidies.
And my understanding is that potentially home checks would be involved if, some neighbour or something is minding a few children in her own home. Is that really feasible? It's
not entirely clear yet. So one of the things that last year's report said, and that I think will be acknowledged in the plan that is going to be launched in a few weeks' time, is that you can't have a regime that is identical to what happens in creches. That would be crazy. These are people's homes. Also, I'm not sure that any government would be willing to give TUSL or anybody else the resources, because we're talking about something along the lines of 35,000 childminders. So it's not clear. The Examiner piece is saying today that there's going to be a consultation opened up as part of the launch of the plan next month. So presumably they're the kind of things that childminders, parents and the general public will get to discuss and talk about. Some of the ideas that have been spoken about in the past in relation to childminders is, basic relevant training, first aid and Garda vetting. And indeed, every year, Early Childhood Ireland does an opinion poll, a childcare barometer, and there's huge public support for this. 87% of adults agree that there needs to be the very basics, including Garda vetting and some training and first aid, and that doesn't happen now. It's not a requirement. It's not a requirement indeed for a great number of childminders to be registered. If you're only minding one or two children, you don't have to register with anybody. So there are definitely flaws in the system, and certainly Early Childhood Ireland will be welcoming the Minister's announcement, which looks to take place next month on a nationwide consultation. That's very, very important.
Because it seems to me sometimes they concentrate on the wrong things when they're dealing with this kind of thing. That the most important thing is if your child is happy. Most people who decide that they want to mind children in their own home love children. So they want to take care of them, and they want to make sure that they're happy. And they certainly want, if their neighbour down the road is coming to pick up their child at the end of the day, or your relative or whatever it is, they want the child to go home happy and to know that they've done a good job. But they seem to focus more officially, if you like, about, that you can't do this, and if a child falls, you can't hug them, and you have to have tiles all over the walls, and you have to give them X amount of food a day. Surely if you can mind your own child, you're pretty capable of minding somebody else's.
Well, just to say that there's a lot in that, and just at the beginning you mentioned relatives. Just to be very clear, our understanding, and this is certainly what the report said last year, is this system, whatever is introduced, and there will be consultation about it, will involve what's called non-kinship childminders, so it won't be family members. So I think it's important to say that. On to your other point, of course, the number one priority for parents is that babies and children are happy and that they're well looked after. I suppose, though, if public funding is going to be introduced into the equation, it can't be introduced into a system that there isn't some oversight for. Early Childhood Ireland would not be in agreement that there needs to be the same level of oversight as there is in creches, where you have much higher numbers of children and so on. So there does need to be some reassurance given, though, particularly if the system is going to become more formalised. This happens in other countries. We often talk about the so-called Scandinavian model, and people immediately assume that the only options that are available in those countries are creches, like Early Childhood Ireland's members. But in fact, in a number of those Nordic countries, childminders are part of the system as well. They get basic training. It's important, and it's important if there's an accident or something, that a childminder feels able to deal with this, that they have basic first aid. It's also very important for parents that people are Garda vetted. I certainly know anecdotally, and I know that this happened during our opinion polling as well, the general public is quite taken aback to hear that childminders aren't vetted.
Yeah.
So in a lot of the time, certainly it is somebody but you might be new to an area. It might be that the school is in a new area, your child might change school, and so on and so forth. And to give parents the reassurance that if it is somebody you don't know very well, or indeed across the board somebody you do know well, that there is some basic requirements and standards that childminders would need to meet, and we certainly think in Early Childhood Ireland that's entirely reasonable and would offer great reassurance to parents and the public.
And just to broaden it out a bit, Frances, from an Early Childhood Ireland point of view, if you like, if you get the treatment that we saw on that programme, and we've seen it in other programmes as well, how damaging is that to a child if you're going home to a loving environment? Do they remember?
Absolutely. I mean, it is. The scenes we saw were absolutely horrific. It can stay with children. I know on one of the national stations, the day after the programme, there was a mother on saying that she knew by her 8-month-old baby, she knew that there had been a change, and he was unfortunately in one of the creches that we saw the awful footage from. So absolutely you do. So it is very important that we have proper oversight of childminders and of creches. It is important to add, though, that our members in Early Childhood Ireland were utterly distressed, even from seeing the clip that the RTE put out a few days in advance. What happened, though, the day after the programme and since, is that our members have been on telling us that parents whose children weren't even in the creche for the summer, or indeed had left because their child is starting in September, that those parents were getting onto our members in droves, saying to them, look, we know that isn't you, we know it's a horrible exception, really grateful for the fact that, their babies and children are coming out happy. But as a deputy TD who was at a Oireachtas committee a few days after the show said, that show, horrific though it was, exceptional though it was, is a wake-up call to parents and the public. And what we in Early Childhood Ireland would say, be it a childminder, but be it a creche, parents are the best advocates for their children, and they have the right to ask any questions they like. They have the right to arrive any time they like. And if there is negativity about that, it's not a good sign. And certainly their local city or county childcare committee will help them to find another creche if that's the case. There should be openness. There should be an open door policy. The best of creches, and I'm happy to say that our members will always have their inspection report ready, will always welcome parents no matter what time of the day they arrive, and they're all good signs. And we'll have parents' meetings, and as I said, we'll have open door and open book policy, so parents can get reassurances from that, and that they are entitled to ask any question that they like, and it should be answered in an open way, even if it's a very awkward question. These are the most precious members of families, and creches hugely take on that responsibility and take that responsibility very seriously.
And it's true, because whatever we might think, what the woman said is true. This is a business. It's a cash cow. It's an absolute cash cow. There's an awful lot of money to be made from charging people, the childcare costs and everything. The prices that are here are absolutely astonishing. I don't know how people manage to have their children minded. It should be a case there you can have an inspection at any time, by official inspection. I don't mean that you have to get notified by it, but you can just drop in and go, what's going on here?
Can I just say, though, can I correct you about the cash cow? I know that people will say, parents will say, it feels like a second mortgage. Actually, in Ireland, we have a major problem of underinvestment. So we have a horrible situation where parents will say that. We have staff who are underpaid. And I know that one of the things that came out during that show was the huge profit that the creches in the footage were making. The Assistant Secretary of the Department of Children and Youth Affairs was able to offer some clarity about that, and that she was clear that only €10,000 in terms of public subsidies were going into the creche. So certainly, based on the footage we saw, if standards are very low, people can be abusing that. But the vast majority of creches, in fact, independent research in 2016 showed that about half of creches are barely breaking even, because we have a scenario in Ireland where we have very, very low investment in the early years sector. In most other countries, they're way ahead of us. So, for example, we spend about 0.2% of our gross domestic product every year. In Sweden, where they have some of the highest standards of early care and education and the lowest levels of child poverty, they're spending 1.9%. So we have a long way to go. So notwithstanding what RTE showed that night, the vast majority of creches are not operating on a cash cow basis. And as I said, are putting babies and children first, but are really struggling to try and make ends meet. And certainly Early Childhood Ireland would be saying that, we need to bring everything to do with the first few years of children's lives under one agency to try, as you're describing, and create a situation where inspections can happen whenever, which they do, but that there will be one set of eyes on those, on creches and on childminders, instead of the 6 or 7 state agencies we have involved at the moment.
That's a big thing, isn't it?
Where parents can go, and it can be a one-stop shop for parents. So, the government has talked about a real-time database. So, in other words, if you have a baby and you're thinking you're going back to work, or wherever the circumstances might be, or you have a preschooler, that you could actually go online and see the latest report. You can see the cost. You can see how much does it cost part-time, what kind of a subsidy will I get, and so on and so forth. So that in the wake of the horrible undercover footage, that's one of the things that Early Childhood Ireland has called for. We think it would give parents and the public great peace of mind, as well as be fairer to the vast majority of providers who are doing a great job out there.
OK, Frances, we leave it there. Thanks for talking to me.
No problem, anytime.
See you, bye-bye. That's Frances Byrne, their Head of Policy and Advocacy at Early Childhood Ireland. We're great in this country, aren't we, that we have all these different groups to look after one particular thing. There's loads of people who deal with homeless people. There's loads of people who deal with, poverty issues. There's loads of people who deal with childcare. And as Frances rightly said there, we need it all to come under the one umbrella. I think it would be way more efficient at the very least. Let's have your thoughts. So 083 3333 975. That's how you get in touch. You can call 051 846 123. Back after these.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to Mulligan's. Did you know you can collect your Blue Club points online? See mulliganspharmacy.com.
You got that power over me. My.
You are welcome back to the programme. It's Maria in for Damien. Now, I think if you've ever heard pain in someone's voice, I think this next clip that you're going to listen to will certainly sum it up. It's the mother of Nora Quoirin, and as she was speaking recently, just have a listen.
We want to say thank you to each and every one of you. We know you're searching night and day for Nora. We see you working so hard and also praying with us, being with us. We know you have given up your time, especially at a special festival time, to be with us here. It means the world to us, and we are so grateful for everything that you are doing for us, everyone here and everyone who is helping, who is not here. We are extremely impressed with the effort, your expertise, your dedication, and we hope you find Nora, and thank you so much, Dermot Goode.
That is Maeve Quoirin, the mother of missing 15-year-old Nora in Malaysia. I have on the line retired Garda Detective Sergeant Alan Bailey, who's a missing persons expert. You're very welcome back to the programme, Alan.
Good morning, Maria. Thank you.
I'm just wondering if this has been treated as a missing person since the get-go. If it had been treated another way, would it have been done differently, if you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, I do know what you're trying to say. And from reading, from what I've seen, I think the police there have reacted straight away. Certainly the researchers were up and running within 24 hours, which was a very positive sign. The family would certainly appear to be pleased with how it's proceeding. Unfortunately, as each day progresses, the hope of finding Nora alive does diminish. As a parent, you'd be saying there's always hope, but as a policeman, you're going day by day, and it's one day more, and as you get more and more concerned. The fact that she was left barefoot, it's either a very sinister sign or a sign which indicates the degree of vulnerability of the young child that we're talking about. It's not something people will do. Certainly not people who are planning to leave.
Because it seems like they are adamant that she can't even walk very well by herself, that she wouldn't have wandered off. She's been away before, she's very shy, she's very vulnerable, and they are adamant that if she left that room, she didn't leave under her own steam.
Yeah, and you can imagine that they've just arrived on holidays, they're totally disoriented, probably after a long, long journey, and you don't know what happened. You're looking, as a policeman, you're looking maybe at people connected with the hotel or with the carrier who brought them to the hotel and things like that. That'd be your initial, and you start at the scene where she's last seen alive and you're working out from there. And they do appear to be doing all the right things. From this remove, you can only go by what you're seeing in the papers and on television.
It must be quite frustrating for families who know the person who's missing very well and could predict their movements and could predict what they will and won't do, and then for authorities to be dealing with the facts as they see it on the ground.
Yeah, and that is a big problem. A big problem is that as a policeman, you kind of, I suppose you have a more clinical or a more business-like approach to it, but as a family, as a parent, and you can hear it, like you say, in that woman's voice, the pain she's going through. And it's all the more poignant because in the background you can hear the sound of the animals calling and that, you know. So it's a real holiday setting for the whole thing. This is a very small enclave where she went missing from. I think there's only 7 or 8 houses in the area. Very limited number of visitors allowed into the particular area and that at one time, you know. So it's a very small number of people that have to deal with on your inquiries, but a vast area. I think the forest is some 4,000 acres.
And she could be anywhere.
A huge area.
And it's you also, as the family of somebody who's missing or abducted or whatever, you have to keep the authorities on side, don't you?
Well, you do. You really do. And especially being a foreigner in a foreign country, if you fall out or if you try to take them on too much, you know, it can have a negative effect or a negative impact. Like I say, from what I can see, it appears that the family are happy with the progress of the investigation, except insofar as Nora hasn't been found yet. You know, and it must be very, very... You know, you go on a holiday, family holiday, you're on such a high and you arrive and you check in and all your plans made, and then 8 o'clock in the morning you're going to call your children to find one of them missing from her bed.
It's horrendous, and it kind of has echoes of Madeleine McCann as well, doesn't it? And that you know, you're on a holiday situation, and then, as you say, you go into the room and your child, that I'm sure was at the forefront of your mind when you were planning this holiday. Oh, it'll be great for the children. Is missing. As the days go on. What happens from an official point of view? Like, when do they decide to call off a search?
Well, see, that's the problem. If they say they've exhausted all avenues, that they won't call off the search, but they will reduce the scale of it. Maybe you wind up with a few people there who are acting kind of just maybe as liaison, and that is the problem with something of this nature. All your resources are thrown into it at the outset, and it's as the days progress, and as I say, as a policeman, you're looking at it from a different perspective, unfortunately.
And as the days goes on, would sort of, from a professional point of view, would it be a bad thing? Like that no one seems to have seen her, no one's seen any trace of her, there doesn't seem to be any reports about her? Yeah,
and I mean, she's a stranger that would stand out, I'd imagine, in that country, and it's the fact that there's been nothing, absolutely nothing, is all the more concerning, all the more worrying.
And I can't think of anything bad enough that your child goes missing in the first place, but to be told by the officials that we're winding down the search now, you know, so effectively we're saying, like, well, we don't think we're going to find her.
They will never see it that way.
Well, I'd hope not, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, and I think what will happen, you'll see next, is a big push at about on the 10th or 11th day. You know, more resources in, and that could be the beginning of the end of it then, you know.
Very difficult.
Yeah, it is difficult, and as I say, as a parent, the last thing you want to hear is that we're scaling down, or that we're cutting back a little, and we'll stay in touch, sort of thing.
Yeah, because you know what that means.
Oh, I do, of course.
You know?
I do, unfortunately.
Okay, Alan, thanks very much for talking to me.
Okay, Maria, thank you very much.
See you, bye-bye.
Goodbye.
That's retired Garda Detective Sergeant Alan Bailey there, who's a missing persons expert, and just can give a bit of an insight into what could be going on in Malaysia. Somebody was wondering how much the authorities in Malaysia are disregarding the abduction theory on the basis of how harmful it would be to tourism. That's from Akira, I think. I don't think it would be... I don't think that would really be I suppose they don't seem to have any evidence for the fact that she was abducted, apart from her parents saying that she wouldn't go anywhere by herself. Anne calls to say she's a lot of sympathy for Nora's family, but you can't help wondering why people would go on holidays to a rainforest or a jungle in the first place, especially with a child so vulnerable. She says that there are so many places to holiday and why take risks, but this could happen anywhere. I mean, you know, Portugal was a nice place to go on holidays, and look what happened there. You know, they're obviously a very... this was some kind of eco-village or something. They're a very adventurous kind of family. She's been in places like this before, and she's never away from her mother. Her mother seems to be with her all the time, and very vulnerable, very shy girl, very vulnerable girl. And I don't think if something like that's going to happen, I don't think the location really makes a difference. Keep your thoughts coming in, 083 3333 975 for your texts. Somebody wants to know how long can we find out from the council why these roadworks at the hospital are taking till September 20th to complete. The schools will be back and it will be absolutely crazy. I suppose, it is causing a little bit of trouble, but certainly not as much trouble as it was causing initially. So I think, to be fair, they've done something to address that, and it seems to be moving along at a fair old whack as well. This is laying a gas pipe, I think it is. But I suppose things take as long as they're going to take. If you need gas pipes laid, you're going to have to dig up the road and the traffic's going to have to stop. So could it have been done during the summer? I don't know why it wasn't. There was all sorts of festivals and things going on. Maybe that's some sort of implication. If anyone has any insight on that, you can let me know as well. 083 3333 975 for your text, or 051 846 123 is how you get in touch with the programme. We're going to be talking about Irish and compulsory Irish and whether all that sort of stuff, because there's new thoughts now that they're going to get rid of the compulsory aspect, or certainly make it easier to get exempted from the compulsory aspect. So I'll be back with that after these.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to Mulligan's. Did you know you can collect your Blue Club points online? See mulliganspharmacy.com.
You got that power over me.
You are welcome back to the programme. It's Maria in for Damien, and this texter says, Maria, does this mean grandparents are going to be checked and Garda vetted to mind their own family members? I've looked after my grandchildren for many years. Young children don't need to be stuck in a creche from early morning 5 days a week. They need a family environment. Maybe if the minister concentrated more on TUSA policy and procedures, we wouldn't have so many problems. And I don't think family, I think you heard Frances Byrne there of Early Childhood Ireland saying that family members won't be included in this. This is more sort of, it's not an official creche, it's just somebody in the neighbourhood who minds children in their own home. But I take your point. Sometimes I think they just spend their time not really, if the child is coming out of the creche happy and healthy and is excited going in and gets to do some play, simple things, and gets interaction with somebody, and maybe even gets told off occasionally if they need to be told off, but they're still happy. Nothing that wouldn't happen in your home environment. That really should be all. They kind of focus on, what you're feeding them and what your kitchen is like and how many children is under the one person. And I know those things are important, but sometimes I think they miss the most important thing. Maria, there were major ructions recently in relation to a creche in Dublin when hidden cameras revealed certain behaviour on the part of the creche owner. How many children and babies are being handed to unofficial childminders on a daily basis? Nobody knows who's coming and going from those households. People being paid cash in hand, no Garda vetting or insurance in place, says John. Well, maybe all this will sort all that out. Now, key changes in rules around granting Irish exemptions for school pupils are being rolled out for the new school year. Excuse me, I'm having a bit of trouble with my voice. And in one key reform, pupils with a learning difficulty such as dyslexia will no longer need a psychological assessment to support an application to drop the subject. Katherine Donnelly wrote that, and she is the education editor at the Irish Independent. The full story on their front cover this morning. Katherine, you're very welcome to the programme.
Good morning.
I was quite surprised to learn that if you have a child with dyslexia, that you still had to have paid €600 for a private assessment to get the exemption.
Well, it's not that you were forced to pay it. In theory, you could get an assessment conducted in school by the National Education Psychological Service, which is a state-run, state-funded organisation attached to the Department of Education. But the reality is that schools would have found it very difficult to get all their pupils who they felt needed such an assessment to have one done by NEP because of resources. So while in theory that service was there, in reality it doesn't have the capacity to cover all pupils who might need such an assessment. So if a parent was really intent on supporting a child in getting an exemption from Irish, and if they could afford it, they often, and many did, I've spoken to a parent this morning who was one of those, many went and got a private assessment, paid a private psychologist for an assessment, and you're talking about €500 or €600 and more for the assessment to support an application for an exemption. So that is a big change for those parents and children.
And what other changes are being introduced?
Well, the other changes that are being introduced, well, I suppose maybe I should add on, as part of it, linked to dropping the requirement for psychological assessment, the criteria for a school granting an exemption have been clarified. So, if a child is having difficulties, or with Irish, and the parents' view is, or the school's view is, or the child's view is that their difficulties are such that they cannot continue with the subject. First of all, they'd have to be in at least second class in primary school. Anything from then on to the rest of primary or second level, that's the first criteria. Next, they'll have to have significant and persistent learning difficulties, and ones that the school has already tried to address with the child, and that they haven't been able to overcome them. And thirdly, the child will have to be in the lowest 10% in their age group for reading comprehension or spelling. So they're the criteria that schools will be required to adhere to in granting an exemption to a child who has a learning difficulty. Now, after that, the other changes are, some of the significant ones would be, strangely enough, in theory it was possible for a pupil in a Gael school to apply for an exemption from the study of Irish, which seems rather strange, but the anomaly was there. And it seems that, I don't know how many of them were ever granted, but certainly psychologists have reported to the Department of Education that parents asked for those, and they tended to be in the latter years of their primary education, because the children were then getting ready to move on to second level, and the parents wanted them to have the exemption at second level. So that is gone now. The exemptions will only apply in English medium schools. And another change. Sorry, my head is sorry. Sorry. I think it'll just come back to me in a moment. If you want to ask me something else, it's very changed. Will come back to me in a moment.
Well, I'm just wondering, you could, if you didn't agree, you can now appeal that decision, can you?
And that's important because there won't be any assessment, it will be done. Well, the assessment will be based on those criteria I mentioned, and the decision will rest with the principal, which has been the case. But the principal up to now has had the use of perhaps a psychological assessment to tell the principal whether or not the child should get one. So. In the future now, the principal will certainly be required to have discussions with the parents and with the child's teacher and the resource teacher and to talk through the issues. But if a principal refuses, and if a parent decides that they've been unfairly treated, there will be an appeal mechanism. The detail of that is still being worked through, but the Minister has said that they will draw up a board of experts in this area, and panels will be drawn from that board to sit on an appeals panel. So that is a new development, and that is something I think that parents will welcome.
It's all a bit of a palaver, though, isn't it, still?
Well, yes, but hopefully what this is doing is it's following other changes that we're seeing in the education system. Like the rules around the Irish exemptions go back to the mid-90s, when we didn't, never mind the layman, but the education system didn't even know as much as it does now about the children with special needs and identification of their need and how to deal with it. So practice in terms of granting exemptions has sort of fallen behind the knowledge that has developed and over the last 20 years. So what this is doing is sort of reflecting the approach being taken in schools generally to dealing with children with special needs, a more inclusive approach, and getting rid of labels and just meeting the child's needs rather than saying, well, you have to have a diagnosis, you have to have a label, and then we'll consider it. I should say, there have been other similar developments in recent years. One, a lot of people might be familiar with it, particularly in the week that's in with the Leaving Cert results due tomorrow, and then the CAO office due later in the week. A few years ago, very similar changes were made to the scheme known as DARE, the disability access route to education. That's the scheme that students who are sitting the Leaving Cert and entering and applying for college can use to get a points waiver if they feel that that the educational need that they have has hindered them in some way in achieving the grades that they need at Leaving Cert. So a few years ago, the requirement under the DARE scheme for psychological assessment was abolished. So what's happening now around the exemptions for Irish is very much in the spirit of that as well, yes.
Can we just go back to what you said about the Gael Scoilna? Because what you say is a small but significant number of psychologists reported to Department of Education inspectors that they were asked to recommend exemptions from the study of Irish pupils in Gael Scoilna so that they could avail of the exemptions at post-primary level. On what grounds would that be given? Because it's a little bit like saying, I've learned everything through English, but yet when I go on to my next school, I want to be exempt from learning English.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I don't know, it's unclear. That emerged in a review that was done by the Department of Education inspectors into the whole issue of exemptions, a review that was published at the end of last year. And they noted that in the review. Now, it's unclear, nowhere was it stated, that I saw anyway, how many such exemptions were given. But it was interesting to note that a number of psychologists reported that. And they made the point they're making was that parents tend to look for these towards the end of primary education, probably on the basis that where the kids had got through primary, and that's one sector, but as they were moving into second level, that they felt it might be just generally easier for the child not to have to continue with Irish, and it would allow them maybe study some other subject and then not have to deal with it for the Leaving Cert, because like Irish tends to divide society in Ireland. There are people who love it and hate it, and there are many parents who are uncomfortable with it. And if their child is having difficulties, and even if they're legitimate difficulties, the parents maybe will just want to do anything they can to help the child to abandon the study of it. And then, as I say, it's up to the systems. Previously, psychologists, to support that view, but now it'll be up to the schools really to decide, based on all they know about the child, to decide whether or not those requests are legitimate. The thing about granting exemptions in anything is that you have to be conscious of, you have to be fair to every other pupil in the system who doesn't have one. So if a child has an exemption, gets special treatment for anything, and it allows them, to do better in other subjects, well then the question that has to be raised is, well then is that fair to all the other students who are studying everything, and who are, and including those who are continuing to struggle with subjects that they're finding difficult. So that's the balance that always has to be struck when exemptions are being granted. Even though, as I say, the grounds for granting exemptions should be solid, but they always have to be balanced against the needs of the needs and the need for fairness against all students in the system. Yeah.
Katherine, thanks very much for talking to me.
Okay, thank you.
See you, bye-bye.
Thanks.
That's Katherine Donnelly there, education editor at the Irish Independent. And there seems to be an awful lot of effort into going this. First of all, I'm just asking the question, do you think that the parents of the children in the Gael Scoilna who then want to get an exemption when the kids are moving on to a different school, do you think maybe they sent their children to a Gael Scoilna for reasons that are not connected much with the love of the Irish language? You can let me know, please, on 083. It's just a thought. 083 3333 975. And also, do you think it's time finally to just drop the whole compulsory nature of Irish? There's a lot of new people coming into the country and they have a love of the language and they're interested in learning it, and the Gael Scoilna will keep it alive, and that for anybody this compulsory nature of it is the thing that will just makes everybody just not want to have anything to do with it. Let's have your thoughts, please. 083 3333 975 for your text. You can WhatsApp those as well, please, or you can also call 051 846 123. I shall be back.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
Thanks to Mulligan's. Blue Club rewards from mulliganspharmacy.com. Spend a little to earn a lot.
Every time I think I'm falling, I know you're falling too. There's no doubt you're rolling.
You are welcome back to the programme. We were talking earlier on about those roadworks just nearby us here, just on the Outer Ring Road, and the ructions that they're going to cause. They're running until the 20th of September. And Larry has texted in. People are wondering why they just started to do them now. And Larry texted in to say a way leave procedure has to be in place before a road can be opened, and that procedure can take time. So maybe that's why, or maybe they just think this is the best time to do it. I don't know if anyone from the council is listening. Give us any insight into that. I'd appreciate it. Brian says, hi Maria, there should be a major rethink about compulsory Irish. Places like Waterford City had no tradition of speaking Irish. Compulsory Irish was brought in the early days of the state to replace the mainly British civil service, with Irish Catholics creating a Gaelic utopia, as Britons and Protestants were very unlikely to learn the language and enter the civil service. If Ireland is ever to be reunited, this has to go, says Brian. You'd imagine that we just, if you want to have it a prerequisite for certain jobs, then fine. Like science, you have to have science for certain jobs. But for everybody else, and then if you didn't do it at school and you wanted to go into one of these careers, then you'd have to go back and do it again. Maybe that's the way to do it. I don't know, but keep your thoughts coming in. 083 3333 975. Now, Aine Carroll is Director of Communications and Policy at the Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, and she's on the line. Aine, good morning.
Good morning, Maria. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Switching your current account is what we're talking about today. Why would you?
Saving money, I suppose. Essentially, the same reason why you'd switch a lot of different products and services. And I think one of the current accounts is one of the things that you'd see your fees going out every quarter, and they're small amounts. And because they're small, you might think, well, that's fine, and you're happy to pay it. But when you sort of add them up over a year or over a couple of years, it's a couple of €100 that you potentially could save by having a look to see if there's another account out there for you.
Because and is it difficult to do?
No, and I think one of the things is anybody who knows somebody who has switched their current account might have heard them say that there were certain payments that didn't go out, or certain things that didn't happen at the right time. And that could put people off from doing it. And definitely a lot of market research would indicate that people would think that switching their current account is a lot of hassle. So there is a switching code in place, which is the central bank code, which basically outlines how the whole switching process should work. So that if you approach a bank and you say you want to switch to them, they have a responsibility to make sure that all of your direct debits and standing orders and everything get transferred over. But I suppose the thing is, for a lot of people, we've a lot of activity on our account. So if you think about your own account, the numbers of standing orders and direct debits that you have going out, one of the things that the switching code really needs is a period of time where there isn't much activity on your account. So if you're somebody that has a huge amount of activity on your account, the switching code may or may not work for you. But I suppose the most important thing is, first of all, to identify an account that that you want to move to, because there's been so much change in terms of technology and payment methods and everything over the last couple of years. There's an awful lot more, I suppose, advantages or benefits for people with certain accounts rather than others. And
can you switch your account if you have your mortgage with one bank? Does that matter?
You can, absolutely. Now, one of the things that I suppose has happened recently is you'll see a lot of banks might give you discounts on one product for another, right? So, for instance, you might get free banking if you have your current account with your mortgage lender. So therefore, if you moved your current account from that bank, you may end up then not. You basically end up paying somewhere else. So you don't have to, and certainly unless there was something when you actually took out your mortgage that there was a commitment to maintain your current account with them for a certain amount of time. If there's no commitment, if it's not tied to anything like that, then you're absolutely free to switch. But if you do have a mortgage with one lender and you have your current account somewhere else, it would definitely be worthwhile talking to your mortgage lender to see whether they have any special offer for their mortgage customers in relation to their current account charges.
Because it seems, I think we're getting a little bit better at switching things, though. There was a time that whatever you went into one day, you just stayed there till the day you died, pretty much. But I think we're...
Your first job, you opened your bank account.
Yeah, exactly. I think we're getting a bit more savvy now in terms of looking around to see, can we get a better deal, or using that to get a better deal from our current provider or our current bank.
Yeah, people definitely are. And I think that's one of the areas of financial services is that there's been a huge amount of change in the last couple of years. So not only do you see, I suppose, the arrival of kind of these digital-only banks, and they're certainly extremely popular with younger consumers. What you've also seen, I suppose, is a change in terms of the whole branch banking system as well. And it may be that if you are a frequent branch visitor or branch user, or if you have cash that you need to deposit from time to time, that one of these digital-only banks isn't going to be suitable for you. But then similarly, I think some banks, if you had your account with somebody because the branch was near, and if that branch is now gone, or if that branch isn't open at times that suit you, all of those are reasons that you might want to kind of consider switching. And you do now have credit unions that offer current accounts. Plus is now offering current accounts. So you're not limited to just, I suppose, the first few banks that might come to mind. And then also, as I said, you have these digital banks as well.
So it's worth looking into.
If you're a consumer that doesn't use cash very often, they can be a really cost-effective way of operating a current account.
Anya, thanks for talking to me.
Thank you very much.
See you, bye-bye. That's Aine Carroll there, Director of Communications and Policy at the Competition and Consumer Protection Commission.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com. Life's a beach with Mulligan's Pharmacies. Open late on the Dunmore Road and in Tremor.
Now, Porrick says, Maria, will people stop bashing the Irish language? It's one of the few ways we have to identify ourselves, especially when we go abroad. I use a few Irish words when I talk to friends. The late, great Billy McCarthy and Sean Organ included on their shows, says Porrick. He also says, there's nothing worse than to be classed as British when you go abroad. Just because you speak English, I have to remind other Europeans I'm Irish, not British. I think that's an accent thing. Like, nobody says to an American that they're English. It's just an accent thing. Some people find it hard to distinguish accents between one thing and another. We've plenty more coming up for you in the second hour of the programme, so please keep it right here. But now it's time for the news at 11 with Sinead.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com. Life's a beach with Mulligan's Pharmacies. Open late on the Dunmore Road and in Tremor.
You are welcome into the second hour of Déise Today. It's Maria in for Damien. On the subject of the Irish language, Karen calls to say she thinks it's quite sad, actually, that there are moves away from it being compulsory. She says it's our native language, and it's such a pity that even less of us are going to be able to talk Irish in the future. She said it wouldn't happen in any other country that people would abandon their native language or as good as. I kind of disagree. I think it's the compulsory nature of it that annoys people and puts people off. I think if they didn't have that, as I said, there's loads of new people coming into the country now who are interested in learning the language. The Gael schools all those things are keeping it alive and making it relevant. When I was at school, it wasn't relevant at all. It was something that you had to do. And I think that all those things will keep it vibrant and will keep it relevant. Whereas if you just keep that compulsory nature, it's a bit old school, if you'll pardon the pun, of like forcing people to do something. When did it ever make you want to do something? Never. But let me have your thoughts. 083 3333 975. Now, health insurance is what we are talking about now, because apparently a lot of people are more concerned with the level of cover that they're getting rather than the cost of it. Dermot Goode is Ireland's leading authority on health insurance, and he's on the line now. You're very welcome back to the programme, Dermot.
Thank you, Maria.
I suppose the first thing to say is there was a time not that long ago that everybody was dropping their health insurance like a hot potato because they really couldn't afford it. Just after the crash there, everybody was saying can't afford it anymore, would love to keep it, but it has to go. That's well, it's not at the figures it was. It seems to have rolled back a bit, that more people are taking it out.
No, I fully agree. I mean, about 300,000 people let their cover lapse after the downturn in the economy. About 220,000 people have now returned to the market. So we're getting very close to I suppose, what was the previous threshold, which was 2.3 million, and we're now at about 2.2 million. So, I mean, that is a positive, Maria. The only one thing, I suppose, in the latest release on the market is that it doesn't refer to the price increases. And I hate to be negative here, but as I'm sure your listeners now, they will know, if they don't know already, all three insurance companies have now had to increase their rates from June right through to VHI just increased their rates on the 1st of August. So we did have a period for the last 18 months of pretty much zero increases, but unfortunately that period is now over. So I would say to all your listeners that they need to be budgeting for about a 5 to 7% increase now over the next 12 months, which by comparison with other insurances, I suppose, is on the low side. But look, nobody likes price increases. But there is a positive in that the overall market is now looks like it's more stable, and looks like more people are returning to private health insurance. Now, the one thing that's missing in the commentary as well, Marie, is that there's an underlying reason why more and more people are basically taking out private cover. It's not that they all want a private room in the likes of Whitfield or in the Bonds in Cork or Beacon or Hermitage Clinic or any of these hospitals. It's because they don't trust our public system. They're afraid of the waiting times for children and for adults. And that's the primary reason why people are taking out private cover. And as we know, our public system continues to struggle. So that is the main reason why at least half of people take out private cover, and that looks like it's not going to change anytime soon.
But the irony of it is that a lot of the waiting lists are caused by the fact that the consultants are treating their private patients.
Yeah, and it's, now there are changes underway in this, in that, look, whether we like it or not, we have this fantastic two-tier system. And look, I've worked in health insurance for 30-odd years, and successive governments have said they were going to tackle this, and it hasn't been tackled. It would require a fundamental change in our model, which is not going to happen anytime soon. A lot of the contracts now that the HSE are giving to consultants only allows them to carry out public work in public hospitals. They're not allowed to do private work in public hospitals. And unfortunately, we now have to advise people, and this is one of the good things in the commentary there at the weekend, is that an awful lot more people are now looking at their private health insurance cover, and they're focusing on the benefits rather than the costs. And if any of your listeners are paying less than €1,000 per adult, if they're only covered for public hospitals, that's not good, Maria, because they really need to be covered for public and private hospitals. Because the reality is that even though everybody is allowed to access public hospital treatment and your taxes covers that, I mean, you could be waiting 3 months for an urgent colonoscopy or an urgent MRI scan, or anybody with a sports injury could be waiting 3 to 6 to 9 months to get that treated. The only way to, I suppose, let's just say, surpass or bypass that is to either pay for your treatment privately yourself or to have private health insurance cover. So whether we like it or not, this two-tier system that we have, it is here to stay for the foreseeable future.
We are better, though, I think. Obviously, there's more competition in the market now than there would have been years ago. But we are better, I think, because people like yourself, to be quite honest about it, Dermot, who would come on and, tell people the amount of savings that can be made simply by switching, and the right things to ask for and the right questions to ask for. We were quite ignorant, I think, for a long time in this country about, we just took whatever they handed out to us and we signed up to it.
We did, and one of the good things, I suppose, we do have 3 very strong competitors now in the market. So we have VHI, and we have Leia Healthcare, and we have Irish Life Health. Very strong, very competent companies, and there's great value out there because they are competing vigorously with each other for business. And I think what's happened as well, Maria, more and more consumers, through word of mouth, through, let's just say, the media, they now realise that switching is easy. So they're not afraid to switch anymore, and we're seeing more and more older people now switching, which is positive. And people think I exaggerate sometimes. Anybody who's on the same plan for 3, 4, 5 years or more, anybody who's on the likes of the old VHI Plan B or the old Irish Life Level 2 Hospital or the old Leia Healthcare Essential Plus schemes, very good cover, but ridiculously expensive. And sometimes those people can save anything from €500 to €1,000 per adult. Sometimes they don't even have to change insurance company, but changing insurer is actually very straightforward. So I suppose one of the good things is that we now have 350 plans in the market. There's huge choice there. And the people who do shop around each year and who ask the right questions, and bear in mind, if you don't phone the insurance company and put them under pressure to give you a better deal, they're not going to phone you and offer you that better deal. It's the exact same with car and home insurance. You have to put them under pressure. So what I would say to all your listeners now is that, look, a new resolution, right? The summer's just over. The children go back to school now on the 1st of September. Everybody's facing a price increase. So as soon as that renewal notice lands, then basically start doing your homework. And if you don't feel up to doing it yourself, we see more and more sons and daughters and friends and neighbours helping older family members or older friends and doing it for them. And the savings are substantial in many cases. So too many people still overpay for their health insurance. Too many people believe they get rewarded for loyalty There is no reward for loyalty in the health insurance market in Ireland whatsoever. In fact, it's not allowed by law. So, don't feel any way loyal to any insurance company. If you like the policy, if you like the price, if you like the benefits, then switch. And if you're nervous about switching, Maria, there are loads of advisors out there who will do the work for you. And if they charge a fee, pay the fee and let them do the work for you, because the savings in most cases are multiples of the fee. But a word of caution. There are certain comparison websites out there. Be very careful of these comparison websites. And we know all the plans, but there is no comparison website out there that will give you the exact information on the best plan for you. It's too complicated. So you need to get either one of the insurance companies to go through the details with you, or get an advisor to do it for you. But please shop around, because those savings that I mentioned are absolutely achievable.
Because it can be quite complicated. You're looking at what, on the face of it looks like the same package for less money, but if you look into it, or if you get somebody to look into it for you, you'll find you could be losing something very crucial and paying for something that you don't even want.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And Marie, here's the type of thing that we say to people. So, for example, if somebody here now is thinking of shopping around, well, what we would say first of all is, look, phone your existing insurance company, tell them you're not happy with the current plan that you have, it's too expensive, and you simply say to them, okay, do you have an equivalent plan that gives similar benefits at a lower cost? Simple as that. And tell them you want them to look across all their plans. You don't care what the plan is called, because there are some bizarre names out there that in many ways are designed to give people the impression that you are not entitled to this plan. You are entitled to join every plan on the market, no matter what it's called. And then just sit back. And if the insurance company suggests that they will send out a comparison rather than keeping you on the phone, don't let them do that. Keep them on the phone, because all the calls are recorded. So I would suggest block out half an hour, have a nice big mug of coffee, and just sit back. And Maria, tell them everything. Here's the other thing that Irish consumers don't feel comfortable with when it comes to insurance. The psyche is tell them nothing, whereas in health insurance, tell them everything, because it doesn't work against you. Premium will be the same. They must offer you every plan. They cannot discriminate against you based on your age or your medical history. And loosely, pin them down. Ask them to explain exactly what's not covered by whatever plan they're recommending. Ask them to explain all the differences. What are you losing? What are you gaining? Tell them everything that's important to you. So if you're due to have a hip replacement, if you're seeing a consultant for, we'll say, angina, or if you have any ongoing conditions, if you're getting regular colonoscopies or anything like that at all, tell them everything, because they then have to tell you whether you're covered or not. And if you like what they suggest, then get them to send out the details. All the calls are recorded, and if you like it, then basically join. And, if you're not happy with what your current insurance company gives you, then you simply phone the other insurance companies, tell them what plan you're on, and go through the same process. So the people who do that, who probe like that and who scrutinise the plans like that, they get the best deal. And a lot of people are I suppose, more comfortable getting an advisor to do it. And there are loads of advisors around the country who will do this for you. This is more complicated than investments or than pensions, and everybody uses an advisor for those products. So health insurance is no different whatsoever.
Linda's called to say she's 2 young children, and she's wondering, Dermot, if you could recommend that someone in her situation has private health insurance. She says no one in the family has any particular medical problems or anything like that, but she just wonders, is private insurance a good safety net for a young family as an unwritten rule?
Yes, my answer to that is absolutely yes, Maria, and I'll tell you why. And we often get asked, what's the point of insuring children, and is it a waste of money because they'll always be treated in the public system? But there's a few things that are never made clear to parents on this. First of all, if your child gets admitted to a public hospital, say like the regional hospital there in Waterford, that child will be charged €80 for every night they're in there, up to 10 nights in any 1 year. So if your child has to have an emergency appendectomy or a tonsillectomy and they're in for 5 to 10 nights, well, that's €400 to €800 you have to pay straight away. And people think the public system is free. Absolutely not. Unless you have a medical card, everybody has to pay that €80 per night. Now, so that means you're on the hook for €800 per child as it is. Now, you can get good insurance, like the likes of the One Plus plan with VHI, the likes of the Simply Connect plan with Leia, the likes of the Nurture plan with Irish Life Health. You can get good cover from between €170 and €240, €280 per child. The other couple of things, though, as well, Maria, is people think children get immediate access. They do not. 8% of all the people on public hospital waiting lists in Ireland are children. So unless it's life-threatening, so tonsillectomies, your child could be waiting 6 to 8 months on a waiting list to get their tonsils removed on the public system. So for me, health insurance for children is not about accommodation. It's not about private or semi-private rooms. It's about access. And also covering that €800 charge. And one final thing that people don't realise is that if I don't cover my child now and I put them on the policy when they're 10 or 12 and they're starting to get into sports and things like that, if they have an existing condition when they join, well, that condition, just like for an adult, will not be covered for 5 years. So I would suggest to all of your listeners, if they can at all, there's lots of advice out there that you don't need to insure children. Ignore that advice. If you can keep your children on the policy, please do.
This texter says, what advice would be for someone who gave up health insurance and is looking to rejoin but has had a serious illness in the meantime?
Now, and this, Maria, comes up all the time as well, and there's no way around this now. So if anybody is rejoining and they have an existing condition, there are no medicals, so they don't have to fill in any medical questionnaires, but the insurance companies will tell them, look, any existing conditions on joining pretty much will not be covered in hospital for 5 years. So if that person requires, I suppose, imminent surgery or imminent medical treatment, the health insurance will not work for them. But if it's a chronic condition, if it's a condition that they're going to have for the rest of their lives, I would suggest get back into the system as quickly as possible. You'd be surprised how quickly 5 years flies past, and they will be covered, let's just say, after 5 years forevermore. So unlike other insurances like life assurance and income protection, where they exclude any existing conditions for life or they rate your premium, with health insurance, they can't do that. So we get people joining who've been told they need to get stents put in or they need a hip replacement 5 to 10 years down the line. They join now, and literally once the 5 years is up, they go in and get their medical treatment done, and it's covered by the insurance company. So I would encourage that member to get back into the system. And bear in mind, anybody who's over 34 on joining as a new member, they are now subject to these new age loadings, Maria, that were brought in there about 4 years ago. So if anybody's getting close to 34, 35, excuse me, we would encourage them to take out a plan so that they can avoid these loadings. Or if somebody, let's just say somebody's 44 years of age and now they're 10 years over the threshold, but they will get credit for any previous membership they had, and that will reduce the loading. But unfortunately now, people are caught between a rock and a hard place. The longer they remain outside the system, the higher the loadings get. So people just need to be aware of that as well.
Paula got in touch with, I think this is a fairly common, I'd say, but she rings to say her elderly parents have been paying a huge VHI premium for years, excuse me, and it is no doubt more than what they need to be paying. She keeps trying to tell them that they're possibly paying too much and that they should shop around, etc., but they just say it's easier to stay with the insurer they have, and they seem to think VHI is superior to the other insurers, etc. And she wonders how many elderly people are like them. She suspects a lot. I know my own aunt is in that situation. I keep saying to her, look, we'll try and get you back. No. I think fear comes into it the older you get. That you're afraid that, you want the best cover and you think money buys the best cover or more money buys the best cover.
Yeah, and you know what, Maria, and that's one of the myths now straight away. So first of all, look, we fully understand a lot of people are fearful of change in many walks of life, okay, particularly if it's medical insurance and particularly if they have underlying medical problems. So first and foremost, we would say to people, a good advisor who is going to review your requirements for you will not change you for the sake of changing you. So they will look at your requirements, and a good advisor should try and find you better cover with your existing provider, first of all. So lots of times, you might be able to get a proper, appropriate plan from your existing insurer. So a lot of people are afraid to review their cover because they think it means switching. No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. That's the first thing. But the second thing which you've touched on, a lot of people mistakenly believe that the more they pay for insurance, the better the cover they have. Completely wrong. So people who are on the old Plan B options and Essential Plus and Level 2 hospital, they're paying approximately between €2,500 and €2,700 per adult. In many cases, they can save €1,000 each, and in many cases get better overall cover because the plans they're on are 15 to 20 to 25 years old. They've been on the market for years. They've been hit by every price increase. And sometimes people are shocked, and people often will say to us, well, what's the catch? How can I save €1,000 per adult and arguably get better overall cover? And there is no catch, Maria. They've simply been on the same plan for too long, and new plans have come out over the last few years that offer phenomenal benefits at a much lower premium, and they're missing out on them by not shopping around. So what I would say to that person is that they need to, unfortunately, if they phone the insurance companies, the insurance companies are very adept at getting people, I suppose, to stay on the same plan. So what I would suggest is they need to engage an advisor, and really I would simply say to their parents, keep an open mind. At the end of the day, nobody will switch your cover unless you decide to do it. But what's the harm in looking at the other options that are out there? And even just to satisfy your curiosity, have a look and see what else is out there, starting with your existing provider. In most cases, you'll be shocked at what you find. But if at the end of the process, the person decides, you know what, I'm more comfortable staying where I am, well, at least they've looked.
Yeah.
And they've considered what else is out there. But, genuinely going back to what I said there, people often ask us, what is the catch? And then we get people saying to us, am I a fool paying all this money over these years? And they're not. Look, insurance is one of those things. It's good to have it. You hopefully never have to use it, but you want to know it's there and it'll work for you. And the plans that are on offer from all three insurance companies are phenomenal. I mean, to be fair to each of the insurance companies, and this is the benefit of competition, there are some phenomenal benefits on the market now that most people don't even know exist. So shopping around, actually, it has two benefits. One benefit is potentially getting you better cover at a lower premium. But the other benefit, though, Maria, is that a lot of people are shocked to learn about benefits that are on their plans already that they don't even know about. Like VHI have a care in the home service nobody knows about. Irish Life have a backup program that most people don't know about. Leia Healthcare and a lot of their plans have no shortfalls in orthopedics. Most people don't even know about that as well. So there's an education side to it as well. But I would say to people, keep an open mind, shop around. At the end of the day, if you're not comfortable changing or switching, you don't have to do it.
Okay, we have to leave it there. But thanks very much for talking to me, Dermot, as always.
That's my pleasure. Thanks, Maria.
See you. Bye-bye. That's Dermot Goode there, Ireland's leading authority on health insurance. And I don't think anybody could argue with that. He's encyclopedic about it. But it just goes to show you that, shopping around makes a huge difference. And I've personal experience of that, that the amount of money that you can save is ridiculous. And it doesn't cost you anything really to just try and find out if, as Dermot says, you want to stay with your existing person, particularly if you're older, if your parents are saying, no, I'm not going to change, because I've been with them for years and years and years. Just say, okay, that's fine, but you're going to pay them whatever it is, $2,000, and you can get the same cover for 1,000, whatever it is. I'm just plucking these figures off the top of my head. Are you sure you still want to? And if they do, it's their money, but they just mightn't be aware of it. So it's definitely worth checking out and ask all the right questions. Okay, I'll be back with more for you after these.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to Mulligan's. Did you know you can collect your Blue Club points online? See mulliganspharmacy.com.
Got that power over me.
You are welcome back to the programme. Lots of questions came in for Dermot. I think probably might have to come back and do a little Q&A for us in the future, because he's just so good and he has all the information and can save people a lot of money. But I'm joined in studio now by Mr. Gavin Whelan, who's in with the look back on the weekend of sport that we've had. And I suppose the big question is, can Kerry stop the Dubs doing 5 in a row?
Yeah, that is the big question. Looking at the weekend, Maria, it's hard to see it, to be honest. Dublin, I suppose, Saturday night didn't have a good start against Mayo. They were trailing at half time, and Mayo brought a great level of intensity to it, but they've played, I think, 7 games in the last 8 weekends, and they were never going to sustain that for 70 minutes. The Dublin machine that's there, the strength and depth, absolutely unbelievable, and they came out in the second half and they really kind of blew Mayo out of the water, 3-14 to 1-10 in the end. Con O'Callaghan, who didn't get much in fairness in the first half, he just oozes confidence, slotted home 2 brilliant goals. Brian Fenton, I don't think he's lost a game for Dublin in the Championship, stormed through from midfield to kick an exceptional goal, and Paul Mannion is certainly putting his hand up for Footballer of the Year. Kick scores at ease in the second half there. You'd feel for Mayo because they are threatening to make that breakthrough every year, and they're getting to semi-finals and they bring great colour and great excitement, but the strength and depth in Dublin, it's just unreal. They're putting a lot into it, and we give out about the population, maybe the cost of it, but they're doing the groundwork too. When you put in the work, you reap the rewards, and they certainly looked impressive Saturday night, 3-14 to 1-10. But they will face on a Kerry side that if there's one team, Maria, that can stop Dublin winning 5 in a row, I think it can be Kerry. Whether it's this Kerry team, I'm not so sure, but I think yesterday, they won. Semi-finals are for winning. 118 to 18 points, they got over the line. I think, if they'd won the game by 10 points, people would be saying, they could have a right cut off Dublin. There's still a lot of question marks, particularly around the Kerry defence. Like they trail 9-5, were kind of very poor in the first half yesterday. They adopted the sweeper system, which Kerry wouldn't be used to playing. Paul Murphy looked kind of lost, and Cathal McShane kicked a lot of scores for Tyrone in the opening half, but fair to Kerry, they really upped the ante in the second half, and Stephen O'Brien exploded into life. He got 1-2, got the crucial goal, and later on got a black card. David Clifford, teenage sensation, was unbelievable. He kicked scores left and right, out of the top drawer really, and Paul Geaney and these forwards, Shawnee O'Shea buzzing around, and the impact of the Kerry bench I think was crucial. Tommy Welch came on, Jack Sherwood came on, kicked a good score, Gavin White, big impact as well off the bench. So the subs Kerry made had the desired effect, and for Peter Keenan, his first year as manager, even though he didn't look too happy afterwards, he was kind of the cute Kerryness now after a match there. Just look, there's only we got over the line, a lot to work on, but there is a lot to work on. But I think it's the final everyone wanted. It's the final everyone look forward to on the 1st of September in Croker. So as of now, can they stop him? I can't see it, but I do give him a chance on today though.
And I know it's a different sport, before you go correct me, but is it a bit like, anyone but United? Would it be a case of anyone but Dublin?
Yeah, absolutely it is. And that's been the case, since they started winning in 2011. They bet Kerry in that final. It was a damp day in Croke Park and Stephen Cluxton kicked the winning point. They haven't looked back since. Jim Gavin is a brilliant manager, and they just
But in terms of who people are going to be up for, will it be like, I don't care who wins once it's not Dublin?
I think, like 5 in a row hasn't been done before. Kerry were nearly there in 1982. Seamus Darby won that famous Offaly goal. But I seen a thing on Twitter during the week that Dublin have printed 5 in a row t-shirts already. Kerry did that in 1982 too. It didn't come up too well, but I think these are people, maybe Dublin support. I think the modern game players don't read too much into this, but it will be in the back of their minds, and I think it will add a little bit of pressure to them. The full backline though is vulnerable enough on both ends. I think Dublin forwards will exploit the Kerry full backline. I think likewise at the other end, if Kerry get ball into Clifford and them, they can do damage. But I think strength and depth and the Dublin bench might stand to them. But look, it's going to be a great occasion on the first Sunday in September. Staying with ladies football, we move to next. Maria, hard luck to the Waterford ladies footballers, bowed out of the All-Ireland Championship with a defeat to Galway on Saturday. Really difficult conditions up there in Longford. I don't know if any of you saw the pictures on TG Cahir on Saturday. It was a wretched afternoon for football. 112 to 2-4, Galway prevailing in the end. Aileen Wall with 2 cracking goals for Waterford, but unfortunately wasn't enough for Kieran Kern's side. So hard luck to the lads. We'll hear from Kieran on our On The Ball show this evening. Looks back at a really successful year for Waterford. Winning the Division 2 League final was great progress, so there has been great progress made. There's a nice blend of youth in the panel. I think he said the average age is around 21 in the panel, so they're learning the whole time, and they learn from the experience. So hard luck to the girls and well done on a great season. So we'll move on to soccer next. I suppose we'll keep things rolling. Premier League, of course, cross channel kick-started. Manchester United with a convincing win yesterday over Chelsea by 4-0, so they'll be happy with that. Man City won 5-0 the weekend, and Liverpool won the other night too. So are you talking about the same 4 again? You probably are here in the soccer, it's just kind of getting fed up with this kind of at times, aren't you? But it'll be interesting. Arsenal had a good win yesterday too, beating Newcastle, so they'll be happy with that. So yeah, interesting opening weekend. There's a long way to go yet, but you'd have to say City, strength and depth again. You go, a lot of money being spent on these players as well. Maria, it has to be said. Spurs began life at their new stadium, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, with a great win on Saturday as well over Aston Villa. And on the domestic front, Waterford FC, a real morale boosting win. They've been on a poor run of form in the league, so it was great to get a win in the FAI Cup yesterday, even though they only beat a non-league team in Maynooth. But sometimes they're the banana skins that you can potentially fall on. Thankfully Waterford didn't fall in that yesterday. 2-0 there. Shane Duggan and Kenny Brown with the goals there for the Blues in that one, so it was a great victory there for Alan Reynolds' side. That draw will take place at 5 o'clock this evening, so we'll be keeping a keen eye on that. I know Matt Keane will keep us posted on that and our 6 o'clock news this evening. And I suppose finally, Maria, just on the GA front, there's a lot of Waterford club games were called off over the weekend, and I suppose it's kind of hard to, it's been up into Dungarvan area as well the weekend. There was that heartbreaking news that broke yesterday on young Jack McGrath, who was an admirable player with the Brickies, unfortunately died in a tragic accident there on Friday night. So it just extends sympathy to the family, such a proud family as well, and such a nice young fella on and off the field as well. So sympathies to the family, and particularly to the Bricky Rangers club. Massive loss. So we're just all thinking of his family and indeed all the Brickies at this sad time.
Okay, Gavin, thanks very much. That is Gavin Whelan there with a look back on the weekend of sport. Back after these.
Join the WLR conversation on Twitter using hashtag Déise Today.
With thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to Mulligan's. Did you know you can collect your Blue Club points online? See mulliganspharmacy.com.
You got that power over me, my.
You are welcome back to the programme. I'm joined in studio now by John Power, who's co-ordinator of the Ask WIT. That's resource for school leavers who are doing the leavings. The results are out tomorrow. I remember the thoughts of my leavings. It wasn't today nor yesterday now, but I remember them coming out, and just that sickness of feeling, oh my God, maybe I should have studied more. But that's a different story. You're very welcome, John. Thanks very much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Now, there's a lot of help and advice in place for students who are going on to the next phase of their life. Just talk us through a little bit about that.
There is. I suppose the first thing to remind the students, I suppose, before tomorrow is that tomorrow is a really exciting day for them. It's a day where they should be congratulated. They should go and celebrate responsibly. And then there will always be a small cohort of students who may be slightly disappointed. They may have had greater expectations than what they've achieved. And it's to not get too lost in what happens tomorrow, because it's only the first step. You're moving on to the next chapter, and there's different avenues that students can follow. But for the majority of students tomorrow, it's a really exciting time. Lots of them will be comfortable with the points that they've received. They'll know fairly comfortably that they will get the course that they were looking for. Some of them may have a slightly more strenuous couple of days while they wait for the points to be settled and for the offers to come out on Thursday. But really, it's the next step that they're taking, and we have lots and lots of supports for those students. So from tomorrow, so from Tuesday, the results go live online to the students from about 10 a.m. And every year, the phones will literally light up, and we get lots and lots of questions from students. Some of them are just looking for reassurance, and that's perfectly fine. And we'll chat to them, but we'll also have students who will be weighing up their options as well. So we have a number of initiatives this week, and we have a full team of people involved in Ask WIT. And it's a great series of events that runs from tomorrow right through until the 23rd of August. So students have the option where they can call us, they can WhatsApp us, or they can drop into the campus and meet with our school's liaison team. And that's available for students and parents, because this is a big decision and parents should be involved in this as well. So we do encourage students and parents to get in touch with us and to weigh up your options, really.
Is there a panic if they don't get the thing that they thought? Like, do they? Because I think an awful lot of students don't realise there's more than one road to get to where you want to go, and you know that yourself.
There are lots of roads that you can take. I was one of those, I suppose, misfortunate students who didn't necessarily get what I wanted when I went through the Leaving Cert. It was a long time ago, but the option of PLC course is there for lots of students. I know lots of the colleges of further education will still accept applications from students. So it is an option that they can go take a year, study something that they may be interested in, and then progress on into third level after that. Lots of our students do that, and we would get a couple of hundred students every year that would be coming through that route to ourselves. And it is a really, really valuable year for those students. For the majority of students, they will be stepping in the door in September, and we normally expect in or around 2,000 students. And it is a lovely feeling for them. But the main concern that we have for students is that they have to be sure that they're doing something that they really, really are interested in and that they love. And I know it sounds very cliche, go study something you love. That's really difficult. Leaving Cert students are faced with so many decisions, and narrowing down your options and listing those courses in the order of preference on the CAO is hard. For the students, we constantly remind them the course that you really want to do the most sits at the top of your CAO. So tomorrow, for students, when they get the results, they'll have an idea of what course they're going to be offered. If that course is not one of your high-ranked courses, you really do have some research to do, and that's why we encourage you to get in touch with us. We'll talk you through your options. We'll talk you through the courses, what those courses are about. We can be accused of putting very fancy titles on courses, when in fact when you drill down into them, they can be quite different to maybe what you expect them to be. So we do encourage students to start that conversation with us and get in touch with us. And
there's a lot of careers now that weren't in existence 10 years ago, or maybe even less. Do you find that there's parents were saying, no, be a lawyer, be a doctor, be all those good stalwart things, and the student is going like, no, but I want to study whatever these new careers
They do. There's always the safe bet courses. Parents are always concerned. I talk to lots of parents throughout the year, and they'll always say, but what job will they get afterwards? The honest answer is there's plenty of jobs out there for students who do really, really well. lots of the jobs and careers and industries that are available today weren't available 10, 15 years ago. The students who are enrolling on courses this September, lots of the industries and careers that they will be taking part in are not there yet. So you have to move with the times, and that's why we encourage students to pick areas that they're interested in. Look at the courses, and lots of those courses are varied for them, but play to your skill set. So some students are a lot more practical, some students are more academic, but you have to weigh up your options as part of it, and some courses will offer you great work experience, some will give you options to go study abroad, you can take languages with some of them as well. The main thing is that you are studying something you genuinely are interested in. There's no magic answer to it, but students who are misinformed or enrol on courses that are not for them are the students that maybe don't make it out the other side of it, and we don't want that for students. We really want to see that they have picked something that they're passionate about and that they will make it out, and it's a lot of fun along the way for them as well.
What about preparing? Because it's a big transition going from school to college. It's a completely different mindset. What advice is there?
It is, and actually for a lot of students, the next week will be quite stressful because the reality kicks in for them that, you know what, I'm off to college and I have to grow up and I have to, it is very different. We're very hands off with the students. We have created a dedicated website called Start WIT, and you'll find it if you go to wit.ie/start, and it is a whole website dedicated for incoming first year students to get them prepared for what happens next. So we talk them through the registration, the orientation process, but we also talk to them about living away from home maybe for the first time, or the jargon around college. What do these words actually really mean? We talk to them about clubs and societies, we show them all the stuff that they can get involved in, and we try to give them a little taster of what to expect when they join us in WIT in September. I suppose what happens next after the Leaving Cert results come out on Tuesday and the offers come out on Thursday, we then we welcome our incoming first year students from the 4th, 5th and 6th of September, and then classes will commence on the 9th of September. But we don't leave go of them at that stage. We hold their hand, and we hold their hand for a number of weeks right through the month of September. So we have a fantastic team of individuals who work in our student life and learning department, and they will make sure that it's a really, really fun first couple of weeks in WIT.
So how do people get in touch if they want to find out more information about everything that we've spoken about?
The first thing that you can do, you can call our dedicated CAO helpline. It's 051 834 176. You can WhatsApp WIT by texting us on 087 377 1770, or you can call into our Ask WIT drop-in centre on campus, and that's on the Cork Road campus. Most of those events and those ways to get in touch with us will be open from 2 o'clock tomorrow, but you also can drop into us even on Saturday and all of the following week as well.
Fingers crossed for everyone. John, thanks very much for coming in.
Thank you.
That's John Power, Co-ordinator of the Ask WIT resource there for school leavers. Be getting those results in the morning. Best of luck, everybody.
These are the days of our lives.
The Days of Our Lives on WLR.
Brought to you by Home Instead Senior Care Waterford, helping seniors stay at home and maintain their independence. Homeinstead.ie.
Some time ago, somebody asked me, where did the name Ballytruckle come from, as he lived there? Well, Ballytruckle is a fascinating name. When the Normans came to Waterford in 1169, they expelled the Irish and allowed the Vikings to remain in the city. However, the Vikings soon rebelled, and they too were expelled from the city and had to live in designated areas outside the city walls. In fact, there are several Viking-related names still in existence in Waterford. Ballytruckle, of course, is one. Galtire is yet another Viking name meaning the land of the foreigner. There is another name for Ballytruckle which is now long forgotten by most people, and that name was applied to Ballytruckle Green. That was the Yellow Holes. So called because in the mid-1700s there was a linen industry carried on there, and the area was a bleach green. It was started in 1746 by Arthur Smith, who came from the north of Ireland with his family of 15, and some experts on the linen making process. In fact, he brought along with him 50 Protestant families to help him out in the venture. Now, part of the process was to steep the linen in water-filled holes, some of which were dug in the Ballybriton Green area. After some time, the water would turn yellow, hence the name, the Yellow Holes. The Yellow Holes was a place in which local people were very proud of, and in fact the name was applied to people who came from the area. So names like Yalla Power, Yalla Murphy, and at that time they didn't say Yalla, they called it Yalla. So you'd have Yalla Power, Yalla Murphy and so forth. Identify the person as being from that area and was a badge that they wore with pride. So there you go, you have it, the Orange of Ballytruckle, and it all started with the Bowden Viking Torkel.
The Days of Our Lives on WLR.
Brought to you by Home Instead Senior Care Waterford. Celebrating 10 years of providing leading home care for Waterford seniors. Homeinstead.ie.
Join the WLR conversation on Twitter using hashtag Déise Today.
With thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com. Life's a beach with Mulligan's Pharmacies. Open late on the Dunmore Road and in Tramore.
You are welcome back to the programme. I'm joined in studio now by Gabriel McGuinness, who's Director of Operations with the Waterford Walls International Street Art Festival. I have to give it away. Everybody just calls it Waterford Walls, but we have to give it its full title. And I also have with me in studio Christina Champagnoni. Is that right?
Yeah.
As good as. Who's also involved as well. You're both very welcome. Thank you very much for coming in. It must be a very busy time for you, Gabriel.
Yes, busy at the moment, but yeah, thank you for having us in. There's lots of stuff going on at the moment.
And it runs now from the 22nd to the 25th of August, correct?
Yes. So there'll be lots of stuff going on. Artists will be kind of arriving from about the 17th onwards. So by the time people arrive on the 22nd, there'll be lots of stuff to see. There'll be stuff in progress and hopefully some finished stuff depending on the weather.
It's really grown, hasn't it?
It has, yeah, certainly. So I have been involved for this will be my third festival, but what the team have kind of achieved over the 5 years has been it's a substantial thing that they've done down there, and it's very impressive. I'm very in awe of what they've done.
A new aspect of it this time around is Creative Europe, the Creative Europe programme. Talk to me a little bit about that.
So, separate from the Walls, from Waterford Walls, we are the Walls Project, who manages Waterford Walls, but also does a number of kind of commissioned artworks and other projects. And as part of that, Creative Europe is coming in now this year. So it is a Europe funded initiative called Murals in the Communities, and we will be working with a partner city in the Netherlands and a partner city in Lithuania. And the general idea is that an artist joins us from Lithuania and from the Netherlands and meets an Irish artist, and as well two local artists who will be assisting with the project. And they run a number of workshops with community groups over kind of the next couple of days, and then from that they develop a sketch which they'll be painting in the O'Connell Street region of Waterford.
Okay. Now, Christina, what will you be doing?
That's a good question. So I've been helping organising all the schedule for the artists and for the community groups to meet. So we started yesterday with the first two workshops with the Polish community group and the residents community group. And today we're actually working at the moment in the studio with the third group, which is the Sudanese group. And then there is going to be along the week a series of meetings. So there will be tomorrow a workshop for all the three community groups to do stencil artworks with the artists. And then there will be a meeting with the community leaders and the artists to discuss the sketch. There is going to be the actual artwork that is going to be painted. And there will be again on this coming Friday, a business workshop which is dedicated to all the business activities along O'Connell Street. And that will be so what is the main concept of all these workshops is that you give a voice to the communities that live in Waterford. And they have the possibility to work with artists to give a representation, a visual representation to their ideas. So as for the community groups, as well for the business groups, there will be a visual response to a visual representation through an artwork to their ideas. So it's all really exciting. I'm sorry for being a bit nervous, but
no, you're fine.
Yeah, that's.
It is a fantastic festival, though, because I remember, this to tell you why I don't put on festivals or have nothing to do with the organ. I remember thinking, sure, how's that going to? You go and stand in front of a wall, look at a picture, and then you'd have to walk ages to get another picture. That's why I lack that kind of vision. But it's fantastic when you see the work that people can do on such an expanse.
Oh, absolutely. I'm seeing this constantly every day, both with the commissions and with the festivals, and it still blows my mind every time to see how even working from a page, to be able to blow that up onto such a massive scale in such a short time frame, and with everything that the kind of working on the street can bring, there's always kind of interruptions and weather, and there's always kind of problem solving involved in it.
It'll make it easier for yourselves.
Absolutely.
And the people will have to paint on a wall, and it doesn't matter if it rains, and it doesn't matter if it,
one way or another, you get round all those things, and it's lucky there's such a great team down there that's kind of able to navigate those bits and pieces. So
what will you all be doing on the 26th of August?
The 26th of August, well, everybody else gets to go home, and then most of the team kind of stay around. There's quite a big clean-up. So if you imagine even the clean-up with a normal festival, if you add kind of paint into that equation, it takes quite some time. So I'll be putting on my painting clothes and cleaning up.
Well, I'm sure it'll be absolutely brilliant festival as always, and thanks to everybody who works so hard to make it happen so that everybody else can enjoy it. Thanks to Gabriel and Christina for joining me in studio, and they have brought the show to a close. That is the Waterford Walls International Street Art Festival, running from the 22nd to the 25th of August. So get out and enjoy it. Thanks for your company on the show this morning. It is produced by Jennifer Long. And I'll be back. Oh, Andy's in next, so he'll bring you lots of fantastic, great music. I'll talk to you again in the morning, and enjoy the rest of your Monday. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.